careful of the path you choose in life. The horror occultic story of Mr. Jakes continues. When the prophet and his workers entered the room and saw what Mr. Jake has just done, they knew the urgency. They stepped out of the room and immediately sent someone down to the village of Mr. Jakes. At the same time, they sent other people out to look around the neighborhood and the area to see if he is somewhere hiding or causing more havoc. They searched around, checked everywhere. Mr. Jakes was nowhere to be found. Back in Mr. Jake's village, the news has just gotten there that Mr. Jake's mother has been killed, and they suspect that he had done it. When the villagers heard this, some people confirmed that they saw him arriving with a backpack on his back. But they said he didn't look stressed, he didn't look angry, he looked normal. So immediately the youths went to their home, searched everywhere. The backpack was found. When they opened the bag, it had few clothing and an axe that is bloody axe. Now that was a sign that the message that came from the prophet was real. Immediately they started asking questions, and some people said they saw him running to the main road of the community. When they went to the people that live around the area close to the main road, they said they saw him running into the woods. Immediately, the youths, the young boys, rushed into the woods and started looking for him. They spent several hours in the forest searching for Mr. Jakes. When they found him, they tied him up and brought him back to the village. When they brought him back, they gathered and they started beating him. At this point, everybody was furious. They didn't want to call the police. They didn't want to involve the law enforcement or anything. They had already sent for his brothers and sisters. So they were beating him up. They brought machetes and they were getting ready to behead him. Some other people suggested that he should be tied and they should add 6 stones, like heavy blocks, and throw him into the main river so he could drown. Some said he should be beheaded. When they asked him, "Where is your mom?" Mr. Jake replied, "I don't know where she is." At that point where they were getting ready to behead him, because now they had a unanimous decision, everyone accepted that he should be beheaded, his brothers and sisters arrived and started pleading. They pleaded and said their brother was not feeling fine and that it was actually the fault of their mother, that they told her that they should take him to the psychiatric hospital, but she refused. So they pleaded and pleaded with the angry youths, and the angry youths reluctantly set him free. But they said, "Make sure you take him out from the community because we do not know what he is capable of. If he could do this to your mother, then he could claim more souls in the village." They accepted, and immediately they loaded him into one of the cars they came with and they drove away. For months upon months, he was nowhere to be seen. The brothers and sisters prepared for the burial of their mother. They brought the mother to their village, but they refused to open the casket. The only people that were allowed to see her was her church members. So, this is what the church members that saw her said. She was looking unrecognizable. Giant stitches all around her face and neck. They said it was horrific. After her funeral, many months passed. Nobody heard from Mr. Jakes. Nobody knew what has happened to him or what has not happened. Rumor was going around that his brothers and sisters finally handed him over to the authorities. Some people said he was sent to the psychiatric hospital and left there. But nobody knew which was true, because his brothers and sisters were not saying anything to anyone, because they were afraid if people from the community would know where he was, they would attack him and kill him, because that is what the community is known for. If you shed a blood of anybody from that community, be rest assured that they're gonna do the same to you. So the brothers and sisters knew that even though he had killed their mother, they still protected him in a way. Few years passed, and one fateful day, Mr. Jakes appeared in his village, wearing torn clothing. He was not looking good. He did not cut his hair. He did look like a madman, walking around talking to himself. Although he was mad, but he still could recognize people that he knew from when he was growing up or from when he was in high school. He could still identify people and say good morning, hello, and call them by their name. But sometimes you will see him walking around talking to himself. At this point, the community people guessed the brothers and sisters, they've done everything they could. He wasn't getting any better. So they left him in the village. Most times he would lock himself in the house, dress himself in his late father's clothes, stay indoors without food for days, and all of a sudden he would come out walking around with a machete in his hands around the community. People kept eye on him because they didn't want him to attack anyone. But at the same time, they could not banish him or send him away from the community. One day, he went to his uncle's house. Now, his uncle was one of the people that held him down the day they were beating him up, and he had said to his uncle, "Uncle, I know you, and this you're doing to me today, I will pay you back someday." And the uncle said, "You won't get that chance." I guess the uncle said that because the uncle knew that if you shed the blood, your blood will be shed also. But because he was not killed, he had the opportunity to come back years later and went straight to his uncle's house. When he stepped in, his uncle was well prepared, waiting, and they had a bloody fight, of which both of them survived because the community youths intervened. His siblings came, took him away, that's Mr. Jakes, again for some months. And one day he was back in the community for the second time, or should I say the third time, wandering around. But he never, ever tried to attack his uncle or anybody. He only walks around, talking to himself, looking unkept. He locks himself in the house, not speaking to anyone. His brothers and sisters, they have never returned to the village ever since. And that's the end.